The fact is that there is an attitude of lawlessness in our country that springs from I don't know where. Maybe you do.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Julian exposed the crimes of CIA torturers, of CIA killers, and now we know that those CIA killers were planning to kill him too. We will fight. Every generation has an epic fight.
How did they organize something like this, and how do you get so many doctors to go along with this? How do you get so many doctors to not speak out against the lack of pre-hospitalization care, the lack of early treatment?
We think there's about 500 doctors who knows what's going on in the United States.
500?
500. We've got 1 million doctors in the United States. We've got 500,000 nurse practitioners and physician assistants. I can tell you the nurses are more awake than the doctors.
Why is that?
The doctors appear to be, like many of our leaders. By the way, all the leaders of the major churches, every single one of them, the major religious branches are under the spell. Every major global international leader is under the spell. We're in what's called a mass formation psychosis. What your listeners need to know is a mass psychosis is when there is a groupthink that develops that's so strong that it leads to something horrific. And the examples are these mass suicides that occur in these religious cults. The example is Nazi Germany when people walk into gas chambers and were gassed. These horrific things. And 4 elements here. It's very important, Joe. First, there must be a period of prolonged isolation, lockdowns. Number 2, there must be a withdrawal of things taken away from people that they used to enjoy. That's happened. Number 3, there must be constant, incessant, free-floating anxiety. All this news cycle, all the deaths and the hospitalizations, more variant mutant strains, everything, people are becoming scared over and over again. And the last thing, number 4, the capper. The capper is there must be a single solution offered by an entity in authority. And in this case is clear. Worldwide, the solution was vaccination. Everybody must take the vaccination. It's not a U.S. program. It's not a European program. It's everywhere. And so what mass psychosis says is, number 4, the solution, there's no limit to the absurdity.
There are no governments. There are no governments. So I have to be able to say no without the bankers pulling my money and putting me in a position where I can't send checks to the taxpayers and the citizens.
What's the big deal?
Get your booster. I saw that. There's no limit to the absurdity.
Welcome to Toxic Airwaves. So Skeef and I decided we're not going to talk a whole lot about COVID because we're over it. It's terrible for our mental health. We're going to live life and enjoy it. Fuck all those assholes trying to make us miserable and go crazy. And yeah.
Yeah. But the ending to that intro was also fantastic. That was just having the acapella weirdos.
Yeah. No. So that's something the White House has been doing. They're trying to run these propaganda campaigns, and they're really, really bad at it. It's very, very terrible. It's kind of like, you go over to your friend's dad's house, and he's trying to be cool and relate to the kids. That's what their attempts are like. But
you kids are into acapella music now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was really on the edge, and then I saw the acapella and changed my mind. But
yeah, I actually went straight to CVS after watching that awesome song, so worked for me.
Yeah, but yeah, if you haven't watched that podcast that Joe Rogan did with Dr. Peter something,
I think McCullough.
Peter McCullough, yeah, that's a definite must watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really confirming everything that, anybody with a critical mind already understands. But yeah, enough.
Yeah, it's not much new information, but it's really interesting to hear it from him. I'm about 70% through. I'll probably finish it in the next week or so.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, thanks to whoever just sent me one set. That's so dope with Lightning Network that you can send one set. Mm-hmm. It's super fun, but yeah. So none of this is about COVID. One of the things that I kind of really clipped Catherine Austin Fitts, but what she was saying in there is that we don't have any government, meaning that the government's completely undermined by the central banks, and I think that's good. It's a good understanding for people that believe in government in the first place to understand that our government is hijacked. But beyond that, the government is illegitimate, even if it weren't compromised by central banking.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did a lot of thinking on this. Somebody tagged me in a tweet this week. It was Mizi's essay, which is really interesting. And one of the things he's talking about is that the free market is far more democratic than, any sort of representative government. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. And, one of his arguments is that a market protects minorities a lot more because the minorities have a voice. And, the example he used back before there were as many fat people as there are today was that they still made clothes for fat people back when he was writing. And even though that at the time they were a very small minority, and, we see this today with niche products and stuff like that. And I think that's a kind of a powerful message right now as we're watching the insanity ensue, is that our voice isn't going to come from going and voting on bullshit, and it's like, let's get this politician in because they support Bitcoin. It's like, no, our voice is in, the places that we shop, the things that we buy. If we spend Bitcoin, if businesses see that people spend Bitcoin, that's going to be a loud and resounding voice encouraging businesses to start accepting Bitcoin. As well as we just don't go places that were abused, and we reward the businesses that treat us well, that don't pull this mass bullshit, that don't passport us, that don't, treat us like children, like the airlines are. And I think that's how we see some meaningful change, because I think people really underestimate the power of markets. It's the most powerful force. It's the reason why Bitcoin is winning and will continue to win, because it's going to eat the fiat, or it is actively eating the fiat currencies alive. And, a lot of us have gone the route of trying to support politicians like Ron Paul to go in and try and end the Fed, and it just will never happen going that way. Yeah. So.
And one example, if you're around, we got the holidays coming up. If you're around some particularly blue-pilled relatives or something like that, ask them just simple questions. One of my favorites is asking people why did they need Jim Crow laws in the South? Why were there Jim Crow laws? And really getting them to think through. It's oh, holy shit! Some guy just running a restaurant, is a lot less likely to turn away customer. Somebody walks in the door with money. He's like, yeah, I'll sell you food. I don't give a shit, if you're where you're from or anything like that. But it's they needed, to make it work at scale, they needed state support. They needed laws that mandated, this is how the bus works. This is how the restaurant works. This is how, they need, just monopolies, ultimately can't come about and then stay in place without state support. It's the same for tyranny, racism, for all these other different horrible things that develop in society. They can spring up without state support. They can exist here and there without state support, but to really be implemented at scale for long periods of time, I don't know of an example where that's been done without massive support from the state in the form of Jim Crow laws and things like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Zorn, so you can adjust how many sats you send. That's just the minimum, by the way. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to pay my taxes on that one sat. Sure.
De minimis. That's the word to use there. De minimis means doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the fancy accounting word for it.
No, that's a good point, though, because this is the argument that a lot of people, especially on the left, have against anarcho-capitalism, particularly, is that the corporations will take over. And, that's not the reality, because without the state, there's not intellectual property laws, and it's not they're going to be things are going to be actively, open sourced, and it's going to be about production. And I just don't think people can accumulate resources without having formed some sort of state, or government to hold on to them via force, because it's not like people just necessarily run and steal things, but it's just hard to scale without a state protecting you. And I think that's powerful. And, you know, we should always, I just, you know, I think, you know, the reality is markets do not work well with monopolies. Like, they're in direct conflict with each other. And that's why, you know, these monopoly powers always seek to distort markets. And I lost my train of thought on that one. Yeah. But yeah, because whenever you have a monopoly, what ultimately happens is the cost of the good rises and the quality of the good lowers. And the only way that they can continue to deliver that item is that if they have protection via force, somebody else will come along and provide a better product. You know, we're seeing that happen today with things like graphene, which is far more superior than Android or iOS. But, you know, the reason why it's not ultimately taken off, it's not difficult to implement, it's not difficult to use. There's some slight inconveniences of it, but the reason why it's not taking off is because of all these stupid intellectual property laws that give Apple and Google so much power and protection. And that's, you know, one of the massive issues that we see right now, for sure.
And graphene's a fantastic daily driver. I love it. A lot of people, and the only reason I say that is because I see a lot of people say it's a bad daily driver, and I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. It took me a couple weeks to figure it out because I've been an Apple cuck my whole life. But yeah, I agree. It is a great daily driver. The only inconvenience is that you can't sit on Twitter Spaces when you're driving. But well, you can sit and listen, but you can't participate.
No, you can get the APK. I run the Twitter app on. I can send it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I run the Twitter app on Graphene. I do Spaces on Graphene through the APK.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Zoran says he runs Graphene too. So proud or happy to see some Graphene representation in the Toxic Airwaves audience.
Yeah. So that last comment by me just shows how much of an Apple cuck I've been for forever. I'm still figuring it out. But
so part of it took me. It's definitely like the main APK I could not get to work. There's I don't know. I was just that phone I just use for anything. So I just download whatever. I don't really care. I don't have anything. You know, it's not like anything super important running on it.
Honestly, though, I don't want the Twitter app on my daily driver because I enjoy not being on Twitter as much.
Yeah.
So,
Lyric likes Calyx. Calyx is another good option. I have not tried out Calyx specifically, but that's Calyx or Graphene. You really can't go wrong. My plan was I'm going to try Graphene. Everyone tells me it's a bad daily driver, so when it's too hard, I'll switch to something else. And then I just never hit that point. It just has always worked great for me.
Yeah. I initially tried to run Calyx and couldn't install it on my phone, so I ran Graphene. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, Calyx is definitely a step up from iOS or Android, but Graphene likes to shit on Calyx for their security holes that they have.
Yeah, and I run it on a Pixel 4a, which is 2 or 3 generations old, and it runs fine. Like, obviously you can get the new one if you want to, but you can also save a few $100s and get the older one. It works fine. Yeah, I don't really see the need for buying new hardware for the most part. But yeah. Well, so yeah, the title of this is Controlled Demolition of Everything. We're continuing to see it happen. The news cycle is interesting. It's always interesting. Every week is something crazy. Did you hear the story of what happened in Colorado with the truck driver? Mm-mm. So truck driver was sentenced to 400 years in prison. I think he got, I'm not familiar with what the charges are because I didn't follow it too closely, but he got 4 charges of manslaughter because his brakes failed and he hit some people and killed them. But it sounds like it wasn't necessarily, well, it definitely wasn't malicious or intentional. But what's happening as a result is we're starting to see truck protests where they're refusing to go into Colorado, which is pretty interesting. So so I guess his brakes just failed and No, Zoran, not 400 years, 100 years. So he got
I think 25 years per each charge of manslaughter. So he hit like 4 cars. It was a pretty bad accident.
And do you know, I guess they must have been able to prove negligence or something like that, I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't follow it too closely.
Even with negligence, that's 4 people died. I don't know. That's 4 people that will never see their family again, too.
Yeah. But this is something that's weird in the U.S., the way that they have these sentences like this, where they can, like, why even bother sentencing someone to 100 years in prison? You know?
Yeah.
I think in some other countries they have maximum prison sentences of like even for murder.
Yeah, Norway, I believe it's like 30 years or something like that. Because that guy that drove a boat out to an island and killed 20 kids or whatever it was, at least by law, I think they can. I should look into this more. I know some really good friend of mine's from Norway and was telling me a little bit about it. But my understanding is, like, the most they can put them in jail is 20-something years. But they have some capacity to, like, commit them to a mental institution after that or something like that if they think they're still a danger. Yeah. So they can, I don't know. Yeah, I need to look into more of that before I open my mouth because I don't know as much about it.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, your life can, get ruined pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of I don't know, it seems like a lot of it's just up to chance. Like in that situation, I mean, like, shit, guy's brakes fail on his truck. But the interesting part of the story is the truck protest. And I think we're going to see that happen more and more, with the way that they're treating truck drivers like shit right now. And there's major trucker shortages. And so what that means is that we don't get stuff that we want.
Well, there's a lot of people realizing, I think, starting to wake up to the power that they have. I mean, there's a video that went big on Twitter a few weeks ago of these guys who were doing, maybe a couple months ago, maybe longer, but these guys were doing landscaping work, and they weren't wearing masks. And this guy comes up to him and goes, you're by my house, you need to be wearing masks. And the landscaper guy went straight to, how about you go fuck yourself before I pound your face in? And the guy was like, you have to wear a mask. And the guy goes, I'm literally about to fight you right now. Is this what you want to do? And the guy was like, oh, I've never been so just gotten a whole big huff about it. But the guy was just like, I'm trying to do my job. Get the fuck out of here or we'll beat your ass. And it's like, I want to see a lot more of that. Yeah. Like a lot of people being like, look, like, what are you going to do? Like, they're having trouble filling all these different jobs. Like, I know if by some chance I get fired here, I could make the same money somewhere else right next door, maybe more. So how about you go fuck yourself and stop bothering me? And I don't know, like that kind of like really, really confrontational, abrasive energy, I want to see a lot more of.
Yeah. Like the guy with the thong on.
Yeah, some guy wearing a thong on the airplane.
That was pretty good. Yeah. Because, like, in reality, like, most of the people trying to ram these things in, they're kind of like junior hall monitors in school.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have any real power. They're like, we're going to call the cops on you. We're going to get our security guards. Yeah. We're going to put you on a list. So, yeah, I mean, my attitude, over the past year is I walk in a business without a mask on. If they tell me to wear one, I just leave.
Yeah.
And if I know that they're going to require a mask and be assholes about it, then I just leave. And I just don't go to that place.
And outside of Salt River, north of Phoenix, I haven't even had that conversation in months and months and months. Like, it's been no issue whatsoever, other than the library. I tried to take my kids to the library, and they started handing me 2 masks for them. And I was like, what's this? He's like, oh, you have to wear a mask in here. And I said, is it required? He's a very nice older man. And so I just said, is it required? He said, yes, it's required. And I said, all right, have a nice day. We walked out. And, I just turned around and started, I don't know, not like I have them well trained or whatever, but they follow me wherever I go. It's pretty cool. So I just turned around and started walking out, and they were right there behind me. And we just got out of there. And then we got out of there and like, oh, sorry, guys, we couldn't go to the library. So we went and bought some books instead, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's that, like, that's what sucks is it's like, it's like it wasn't that big of a deal for us. Like we found another way to get books, but it's like, what's like if we didn't have that option, we just have to go there and put a fucking diaper on our face while we sit down in a chair and read some books for free. That's like, I don't know. If as far as like being an anarchist and eliminating government programs, I'm putting libraries last. That's all I'm saying. Like, definitely I'd get rid of roads before I got rid of libraries.
Yeah. Roads.
Or at least get rid of government control of roads.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, I had a moment of inspiration this week, and I figured out a way to ensure that we don't have any pedophiles in government.
I'm interested.
We just don't have government.
Yeah, that works. It's probably the only way.
And then if somebody this is just a stupid anarchist like dad joke type level, but they're like, you can present this argument to people, and if they ask who will build the roads in schools, who will teach classes, you can just say not pedophiles.
Yeah.
So
that's always my go-to if I'm talking to somebody who's like giving me shit about not voting or whatever. I would usually, like, one of my favorite things to say is, "Oh, don't worry, I'm one of those uneducated people the TV warned you about. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good."
Yeah.
I'm one. The TV says I'm dangerous anyway, so don't worry about it. I'm not voting. You don't have to worry about me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the reason, like, I've had a major change of hearts when it comes to voting. I think voting's really important, and I think lobbying is incredibly important.
That's a good point.
I think that we should have gone back, if we could go back in time, we should have just lobbied George Bush more, not to go and kill millions of people in the Middle East. We could have lobbied Obama to not drone strike so many people. And we could have lobbied Trump not to help support a genocide in Yemen. You know, and the fault's on us. We just didn't vote hard enough, and we didn't lobby hard enough. And if we had just gone and primaried everybody under the sun, we wouldn't have had all these issues. So,
and I think what really everybody, you know, if you've got a weekly DCA, I think what you really want to do, so let's say you're buying 4 times a month, you know, you get paid on Fridays or something like that. Take every other one of those and donate those sats to political causes, because that's what's really going to move the needle. Like, you're not going to want to, you know, try to be sovereign, try to be free. You're not going to want to try to do this for yourself. What you're going to want to do is take half of this, what you would use for sats, and give that to the right politicians who, you know, maybe it's somebody like Ted Cruz, who was directly complicit in murdering children in the past, but we're going to need you to forget all that. And, you know, he had something nice to say about miners recently, that they like help balance the grid or something. I forget exactly. I wasn't really paying attention, but he's a good one. Definitely donate to Ted Cruz instead of buying sats for yourself, because that's what's going to bring about liberty. Like, this isn't about individuals. This is about collective groups that are able to manipulate the existing power systems. We don't want to get rid of the existing power systems. We want to manipulate them so that they work for us, and that's totally something within our control. So however much sats you're buying each month, take half of that, at least, maybe 75%, and go ahead and give that to politicians for sure. Yeah.
And we just need to get okay with the idea of letting them govern us harder. We just need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because any attempt to actually attain any semblance of freedom in our lifetimes is, you know, it's just a waste of energy when we can be donating to political campaigns, you know, using our time and our very limited time very wisely. Instead of building things that actually matter, we can go and phone bank for a politician, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. And if I think it's really important to also take wins where we can get them. So, like, let's say there's a politician who wants to mandate vaccines but not boosters. You know, hey, that's a win. Go ahead and support that vaccine mandating politician, as long as they promise they're not going to do the same thing for boosters in 3 months. Because if we can't trust politicians, who can we trust? Yeah. And I think we got to take those wins where we can get them.
Absolutely.
Like if there's somebody who, you know, a while ago we had the $600 rule. You know, I didn't pay attention to whether or not that actually went through or not.
I don't think so.
But yeah, so let's say that comes up again, And there's one person who's saying, hey, we want to monitor transactions under $1,000, but another one says, hey, we want to make it $750. Go ahead and donate to that one that's pushing for $750, because that's a win. And we need these marginal wins as we go, and that's how we change things.
Yes,
is taking these little steps in the existing system, versus don't go out and build a parallel system. That's a little bit dangerous in my opinion.
We should be asking for permission in literally everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't have permission, then it puts us at risk.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of society would there be without a state? It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's totally ridiculous. We've always had a state since 1776.
Mm-hmm.
There was no history prior to that, obviously.
Yeah. No, all this nonsense is so bullshit, because like when you really look at the system, thanks Zorn for the one set. I saw that. It's so funny getting these invoices of one set. Yeah, I mean, you just like Nancy Pelosi goes up there. That video is just amazing to me. She goes up there and she goes, there's this sense of lawlessness in the country that I don't know where it comes from. And then you got Bill Barr, right afterwards talking about all the, bullshit that he did in the CIA, lying and cheating. That guy, was plotting to assassinate Julian Assange, and it was interesting. Well, we'll bring it up probably again in conspiracy time, once we're going for a little bit longer, but it's interesting how Ephesians brought up like how WikiLeaks led to Pizzagate and how they absolutely lost their mind.
Yep.
And how that's probably the reason why they're super pissed at Assange. Like they frame it as like, oh, he's a guy that like, showed the U.S. doing a bunch of war crimes. I think everybody knows that the U.S. is constantly involved in war crimes and doing awful things. Like you don't need WikiLeaks. Just go listen to Scott Horton for, one episode and you'll just be mind boggled by all the bullshit. That stuff happens in like the normal news. But yeah.
And it's like waking people up to, people like the Podesta brothers. And just, I mean, it's like evil almost isn't even a good enough word for these fucks. It's, I mean, we're not going to go into specifics on them, but it's just, it's unbelievable. Like all the stuff they've been involved in. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of bothers me, when we have Bitcoiners going and, talking about trying to lobby these politicians, because you're giving legitimacy to the system. It's essentially like giving your tacit consent. It's like how can we consent to any of this? Like we're watching, like if you have the ability to have your eyes, slightly open and to be aware of what's happening around you in your community right now, what's being done to the people with, the bullshit in the public schools, with inflation, with, just theft of everybody's assets. It's like, on top of all the pedophilia that's happening on high levels, and other bullshit. I mean, yeah.
Well, and the idea that you're going to win their game on their terms, on their platform, using their narrative. It's completely fucking retarded. Like, I don't know, like, I honestly, like, I know people well who advocate, the stuff that we were sarcastically talking about earlier, that, talk about that stuff seriously. And I just don't, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I really think it comes down to, something we've talked about before, which is, are we adapting and building on the existing system and redeeming the existing system, or are we building a completely parallel system that people are totally free to opt into or not? And I'm 100% in the second camp, and the first camp makes no sense to me whatsoever. But
yeah, no, I agree. And it kind of took me till 2020 to see this, to really get shocked out of, my status conditioning. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. And I think that's just, what will always lead people to abolitionism is, just being burned bad by the state. you know, and those are the people that we need to be hanging out with and talking. And it's not the yuppies that see no problem with all the bullshit. It's, you know, people that have really had their boot on their neck for a long time.
Lurk wants to know, do we even live free? We can if we want to. It's becoming more and more accessible every day with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I think, you know, it's really interesting to go and read books like Man's Search for Meaning, to read, you know, stories of people that were in the Holocaust or, you know, in Russian camps or, you know, any point in history that was like super crazy and wildly oppressive like that. Man's Search for Meaning is my personal favorite because, you know, he really outlines how he was able to, you know, keep a sense of sanity in one of the most horrific, you know, human events that could ever happen. And, you know, I think that's ultimately, you know, this is why individualism is important. You know, taking ownership for your life is important in all of your circumstances, and trying to find purpose and meaning in the things that you do, because that's ultimately what leads you to freedom. And like, it's interesting because you know, one of the major issues that we see today is, you know, people aren't necessarily being, you know, totally screwed with a gun to their head necessarily. You know, a lot of people are just entering into servitude. There's a guy that runs a podcast called the Vanu Podcast that I like. He calls it the Servitile Society, you know, based on pleasure, you know, based out of convenience, just doing whatever, you know, is easiest. And, you know, a lot of people just like put the chains on themselves. And I think, you know, when you make a conscious decision of like, I'm going to live free today, I'm going to think critically for myself. And instead of just doing what all the other,
these fucking lemmings,
what the lemmings are doing, you know, I'm going to make conscious decisions for, you know, myself and the people to better the people around me. I think that's, you know, incredibly empowering and liberating. So,
yeah. I see we got Weinicus. Weinicus, you got anything for us?
He might be busy. He's not. Okay. He's not accepting my request.
Things we have to put up with, Weinicus.
Yeah, I got some questions for Weinicus. But yeah, all right. So one thing I have on the list is a potential civil war in the U.S.
Yeah, I still have a really hard time seeing, seeing like that kind of conflict. Like my best guess is it's like a dissolution somewhat comparable to what we saw in the late 80s, early 90s in, you know, what is now, or what used to be the Soviet Union, of just like the like I see the power structures in place, primarily the federal government, but also state governments, just rapidly losing the ability to accumulate power and resources. And I see them getting, you know, more and more draconian and more, you know, like the rules on paper get worse and worse, but the lived reality on the ground gets better and better. And so, you know, like, you know, yeah, they just make more and more. It's like, oh, well, now you have to report this if you run a Lightning node, or, you know, or whatever silly thing they come up with. And people are like, oh, yeah, no, actually go fuck yourself. Sound good? You know, and they're like, no, well, we're the, you know, we have the power. It was just kind of like that, actually like an at-scale version of kind of what I was talking about earlier with the, you know, the block of tofu and the landscaper. Is it's like you've got this guy, he's like, well, I have a nice house in a nice neighborhood and I'm vaccinated and this man doesn't have a mask and I clearly am entitled to be able to tell him to put a mask on. And the response is, no, go fuck yourself or I will literally pound your face into the ground. And they're like, he's like, well, I've never been disrespected. Like, and it's like, I just think like we have to be, like we have to treat them with absolutely blatant disrespect and mockery and laugh at them. And because they're very accustomed to being feared. Like they're very accustomed to being disliked. That's no problem. They're like, yeah, I'm a politician. People hate me. Big deal. But it's like what they're not accustomed to is being treated with just absolutely blatant disrespect and being mocked and being laughed at. and being made to realize how completely irrelevant and powerless they are and neutered. And it's like, I think doing that at scale is a big part of how we win, of meeting, because what they want is for people to get really angry. And what they really, really want is for people to get violent. And to me, that's failure. That's bad news. And it's like, what we need to do is just mock them and laugh at them and like make them feel stupid because they are.
Let's go, Brandon!
Exactly. Let's go, Brandon's a perfect example.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think this is something that, if you got friends out there that think that a violent revolution is a good idea, I think it's really important to be talking with them. Just like, look at January 6th. What did that accomplish?
Yeah. And that wasn't even violent, despite what CNN says. And it's like, yeah.
Optically, it does nothing. It's even stupider than voting. You're better off trying to create change through voting than going out and being violent against the state So.
And it's a lot of those people tend to be, they can be very hot-headed or whatever. And it's like, look, like I'm like really like as much as you can, like try to get through. It's like, no, what you're talking about, like this isn't it's not like I just, read a bunch of Gandhi and I'm regurgitating that to you. Like I'm telling you why it's bad strategy. I'm telling you why it doesn't win. I'm telling you it's playing their game on their terms, on their platforms, in areas that they control. And it's like, that's, we in Bitcoin come out of the cypherpunk movement and like using asymmetric advantages, using leverage, using technology. I mean, these are all things that we can learn from the cypherpunks. And it's like there's a lot of people that just want to throw all that in the garbage and just go fight somebody. And that is extremely, extremely misguided, short-sighted, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think, one of the things that we can do that's positive, in waiting this, because, there might be violence and there might be a lot of chaos going forward. Like we've already seen a tremendous amount of violence with the riots and, we've seen it happen kind of in small segments, a lot of it happening in Portland, Oregon, where they have people literally fighting in the streets, like Berlin, 1930s Berlin. And we just have to condemn it, and say that we're not a part of it. Like we don't support the violence, we're not. So I think that's a big part of it, is taking a strong stance against it.
Yeah. And if you're in an area that is not Arizona, maybe Texas or somewhere like that doesn't value self-defense, like and that was a joke, but seriously, like be extremely careful. So like, for example, there's all these examples in New York, New Jersey, West Coast, places like that of, like people legitimately saving somebody's life and then going to jail for a very long time because it's like one person's beating the shit out of another person. They come up, stop the fight, beat up the person, beat up the aggressor. And, then they go to jail for assault or something. Like that stuff happens in blue states all the time. It's like, let these people have their communist hellholes, like stay out. Like this is something, Cernovich is one person that turned me on to this idea. That's like he tweeted out a bunch of examples like that, and he's a lawyer by background. So he was kind of getting into the cases and stuff, but it's just like, yeah, you're in a place that doesn't value self-defense and, you need to be aware of that because you can get jail time for helping somebody and that, you see somebody beating somebody with a skateboard, you go up and, knock that person out or something like that. Like you can go to jail for assault in a lot of states in that, in Arizona, you could do a lot more than that and they'll give you a blue ribbon, but in a lot of states, that's not the case. So, and even some places in the Midwest aren't, they might be ostensibly red states, but not great for that kind of stuff. So anyway, just be smart, be very, very smart. Defend yourself, defend people you care about, but be very, very cautious about getting involved with anybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I've got big news.
What's your big news?
Slush Pool just hit 10x a
just
hash.
Now? Nice. Good job, Slush Pool.
Yeah.
The pleb pool.
It is the pleb pool. Brains OS. Brilliant business model. I was talking to somebody that really was ragging on Slush, and I didn't really understand it. I think he didn't like the fee structure, but I think the fee structure's fine.
Yeah. It's good, especially if you're a gambler. All the gamblers I know love slush pool because you gets paid per block instead of like one like F2 or something that averages it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, getting paid per block, it kind of evens out over time.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, so I don't think it's all that different. And doing the consistent payouts, it's kind of a gamble for the mining pool. So
yeah. But it's like some people have done, like Joe Rogers sent me some analysis. I think it was from him. Anyway, I saw something on Telegram that was like an analysis that's like some statistical analysis that slush pool had gotten more blocks than they should have somehow. But I didn't look into it, so I don't have anything worthwhile to contribute other beyond that.
Yeah, I don't really either, but I've been mining with them and I appreciate them and like them.
Nice.
I like their attitude. And, one of the things that Adam was saying last week, Denver Bitcoin, was that slush pool was on the right side of history.
Yes.
Where some of the other pools weren't. But yeah. Speaking of which, Winekiss, you had a tweet about wanting to start mining this week.
Yeah, I'm just getting a lot of FOMO from everyone talking about their home mining setup, and I feel like I'm missing out. So
yeah,
I don't know what to do.
Wait a little bit. I think ASIC prices are going to come down a little bit.
Yeah, they're pretty high right now.
I wish it was just as simple as plugging in a machine into the wall and that's it. But there's more care that needs to be done.
A little bit, but not a ton, right?
If you have an S9, it's pretty much just plug and play, because like the biggest issue is heat, noise, and electricity. And so like pretty much every miner except for the S9, you have to run it on a 220 volt. So most of your outlets, at least in the US, are not configured for that. So you would have to like use a dryer plug-in or water heater, oven, something like that. So that's where things get tricky, and you have to start, changing up your electricity wiring, get an electrician to come in, which, honestly isn't that big of a deal. But yeah, if you get an S9, you can run it on 110. They're technically, I think, supposed to run on 220, but you can run it on 110. I have one running on 110 right now, and I'm getting about 16 terahash. So thanks to Brains, it's performing a little bit better. But yeah, if you're going to go out and get an S19 or, one of the What's Miner models like an M20 or M30, they're going to run hot. They're going to be loud as shit. And it's kind of going to be a pain in the ass. And you're going to have to do more work. But what I did with my S9 so far is it's actually my girlfriend. Shout out to Gazala. Gazala gave it to me. You should have friends like Gazala. Yeah. They might give you free miners. But
yeah, Gazala's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I said it. I just did the classic. I've got a video somewhere on my Twitter of it, but I did the classic old, $20 cooler where I cut holes on either side. So I cut like a circular hole to run a tube out, and it sits in like my living room, and wherever we're hanging out in the house, I have like this super long 20-foot hose, or maybe longer than that, maybe like 50-foot hose that I just bring to wherever I'm at as a space heater. So because I don't have heat running in my house right now, but.
And with his setup, the noise is super manageable.
Yeah.
Like you could watch TV in the next room. You could read a book right next to it. It's no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. When we had the TV going, you can't even hear it. But it's far enough from the bedroom. But yeah, my girlfriend is like super sound sensitive and gets super irritated with minor noises. So that's been a challenge for me. But she's fine with the S9 running in the cooler. But yeah, if you got any questions on that, let me know. S19s, a little bit more difficult. They're extremely loud and extremely hot. So, but you can deal with a lot of it if you just vent the air out the window. It doesn't get too hot. You could keep it under AC and probably run fine, from what I've experienced so far. So
nice.
But yeah. Shout out to Slush Pool. That's a pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are things out in Arizona?
Things are good.
Yeah.
The most based state in all of the U.S. according to Ski.
One of them. I'd put actually South Dakota. So my primary metric is how did they handle COVID, and South Dakota beat everyone on that metric, and Florida did better than Arizona, no question about that. So, yeah,
a lot of places.
Yeah, Florida's pretty based.
Yeah, Florida did good.
A lot of places did better than Tucson, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Florida's mainstream Arizona.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell Ephesians if I ever wanted to live in an armpit, I'd go out and live in Florida.
Zorn says, my wife just bought a kitten. I'm now irresponsibly short Bitcoin. That's funny.
It's good. It's good to keep her happy, though, Zorn. That's a good investment.
Yeah. Arizona Bitcoin scene is going strong into 2022. We got a lot of things on the books, planning, getting things done. So I'm going to be doing a mining workshop in Tucson. We got a free S9 from Kaboom Racks to do as a giveaway, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to have somebody, hopefully somebody gets it.
Those are going for like 1 million sats, right? Nowadays. Roughly.
Yeah.
They're around 500.
Probably. Yeah. A little bit less than 1 million. Prices are going to come down.
Yeah.
S9s are not worth that much, in my opinion.
How many people are showing up to your meetups?
3 million.
Yeah.
No. What's a good one? 20 and 15?
Yeah, we get about 15 or 20 in Tucson, and then Phoenix is huge.
Yeah.
We get not like Houston huge, but we get 50, 70 people depending on the event.
Yeah.
And we got some.
What?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say of the people that show up to these meetups, like what's their toxicity level?
It's generally pretty toxic. I mean, we have a pretty strong core group of people that really hold the line, that either work in the Bitcoin industry or have been around for a while and really get it. We got a very high anarchist kind of ratio going. We'll have the occasional person wander in that knows nothing, and they get blasted with some of the most toxic Bitcoin opinions, and which is really funny. In Tucson, Skeef and I pretty much explained to a shitcoin trader how mistaken he was with his life choices for like an hour, and he never came back.
Yep. Yeah.
Which
there's not many shitcoiners that show up. Most people show up. They're if they're not already Bitcoiners, their perspective is basically, this is something that's going on, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. Yeah. And I obviously have all the time in the world for somebody like that. Like, if somebody comes out the gates, here's why it's stupid, here's why it's gonna fail, that person can go fuck themselves. But if somebody's like, I don't know anything about this, and I'd like to learn a little bit more, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. That's exactly what we want.
Yeah. I personally kind of enjoy talking with the shitcoiners and dismantling their arguments, because it's good practice. I don't like to do it on Twitter or on Spaces or anything like that. I think that's a waste of time. But when they come in person, it's something I enjoy. I like to learn more about each shitcoin and have them explain it to me. So then when somebody texts me out of the blue and is like, hey, should I buy this shitcoin? I could be like, no, this is the problem with it. But my all-time favorite is Cardano, where I just, holy shit, somebody just sent me 35,000 cents.
Nice.
Wow. Big thank you to whoever that was. I'm probably not worth that much.
Not with that attitude.
But Cardano is my favorite to shit on because it's so easy to just say, Charles Hoskin is actively working to build a social credit system in Ethiopia. And, I have a video of him explaining it personally.
This is Zorn.
Oh, well, thanks, Zorn.
Yeah.
Beers aren't that expensive in Tucson. Maybe. Man. Big thank you. But
Yeah. Charles Hoskinson building a social credit system.
yeah, that guy's such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's why he runs
There was
proof of stake.
one of my this is like so minor, but Charles Hoskinson, I remember a month or two, maybe a little longer. Weinicus, you might remember this. He tweeted out some garden bed that he built, and Shishi was in there talking shit about how he built the garden bed. Like there were these like adapters that he put on backwards or something. I forget exactly what happened, but Shishi was like, "This is the stupidest fucking gardening bed I've ever seen in my life. Like, this is why your gardening bed sucks. You need to learn how to build a gardening bed." Like Shishi was just lighting him up. It was pretty awesome.
That was amazing. That guy's such an idiot. But honestly, I wouldn't have known anything about that. I need to consult she more often on gardening stuff. But yeah, my compost is rolling. I'm pretty happy with my compost.
Nice.
But yeah, whatever. Maybe we should do No, we probably shouldn't waste the time doing an entire episode on Cardano and Charles.
Nah, just shit on him occasionally.
Yeah. I just love his takes on Bitcoin.
Lurk, I think you're right. Lurk said, wasn't it the sideboards were connected wrong or something? He said, haha, I think I remember that. Yeah, it was, I forget the exact context, but Shishi was lighting him up over his shitty ass gardening bed. I remember that.
So what it was there were these metal fastener things that held the boards together in the corners. And so you screw the screws into the metal piece, which holds the corners together.
Okay.
And they were supposed to be on the outside, but they were on the inside.
Okay.
Because when they're on the outside and the force pushes out, they're screwed in, holding well, and fastened. When they're on the inside and it's pushing out,
okay,
it's pulling off of the screw instead of the metal piece, and it's not fastened correctly. So that was the issue. So rookie mistake.
Yeah.
From one of the from Craig Wright 2.0.
Yeah.
That might be giving him too much credit. Gosh. Have you seen the beef between, on the topic of shitcoiners, have you seen the beef between Canicarus, Nico, and all the BSV crew?
No.
It's so funny.
I'm assuming, I mean, obviously they hate each other.
Yeah.
Are they they're like in their YouTube comments or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Hey, BSV people, get in our YouTube comments. We want to fight with you too.
Yeah. Get in our spaces. No.
Fucking retards.
It's just anybody that goes out and says that Bitcoin isn't the real Bitcoin because of some obscure thing on the white paper, and because that you can't run pictures on the base layer.
Oh, the first seriously 5 or 6 times I read their argument, I was certain I was being trolled. Like that, you've seen the thing where they're like, "This is something Craig definitely wrote. This is something that that Satoshi definitely wrote," and then they're doing this like textual analysis comparing it. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay. These guys are making fun of BSV people. Okay, that's not super funny, but it's kind of funny."
Yeah.
And then I'd see it again, and I'm like, "Man, this is like a really common joke. Like, why do people keep making this joke? It's a little bit funny, but it's not like hilarious or anything." And then I realized they were being serious, and I was like, "Oh, it's like." What's that meme where you pet the dog and you go, "Oh no, it's retarded." It's like just like that.
If you guys want to join a cult, there's much better cults out there that are being led by, much more convincing people than Craig or Charles.
Yeah, try if you I don't know if we have any Mormons or not, but anyway, if you join a Mormon church, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a wife, get a family, get all that kind of stuff. There's cults with real benefits out there.
You can get a cushy job working for the CIA or the FBI.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mormons in the CIA for sure.
Do you guys know any cults I can join where I don't have to work and get paid, not do anything?
You can found
other than Bitcoin.
That's what I was going to say. For that, I think you're going to want to start your own.
Yeah.
Then you have other people do all the work for you. A lot of women if you do it right.
Yeah. There is this really...
kind of like Bitcoin. If you hold long enough, people are working for you.
Yeah.
Building out the ecosystem infrastructure. And then obviously, like, women will eventually be attracted to you, right? We're all getting girlfriends.
That's what I hear.
So it's like a low time preference cult.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start whatever point you start buying. Two cycles after that is when you can start a cult.
Yeah.
In it for the cult.
In it for the cult.
Let's be honest here, though. I think Dan Held would be a better cult leader than Charles or Craig.
Dan Held, the guy who was I said somebody I was like I did this whole meme that's developed of Dan Held taking credit for everyone else. I was like, I really like these Dan Held memes. Then somebody said, no, Dan Held is a meme. You don't understand. Like, that's a really good point. Like, can you just like he's just the that scene in Good Will Hunting, the blonde-haired loser guy who like has no original thought whatsoever. He just regurgitates the stuff he read in the history book, and then Matt Damon's character Will comes in and just schools him on everything. It's like Dan Held is the blonde ponytailed guy from Good Will Hunting. He's like the perfect embodiment of that. Like, I'm sure he's got a lot of money. I'm sure he's got more. I'm certain, absolutely certain, he's got more money than I do. No question about it. But it's like just nothing approaching a original thought. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. The question I wanted to get on the Preston Pish podcast, which did not make it on, it was just an honest question. Like, I wasn't trying to be a dick, even though I definitely was, which was just that it's like, how does he reconcile what he says about Bitcoin with where he pulls his income from and, a whole bunch of other stuff? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But because it's like they're completely contradictory. And it's like, I can't imagine how people live in that cognitive dissonance, but a lot of people can make it work.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got blocked from that thread too.
My
question was, my question to Preston was, what scheduled tweet does Dan have for tomorrow morning? and then people replied under it, and they corrected it to whose tweet do you have scheduled for tomorrow morning?
That's perfect. Stony, I remember laughing at Stoney's, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah. Man, Stoney's been on a roll.
Yeah, he has.
He's going after Laser Huddle pretty hard. It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We have, would you say that Raoul Paul's probably your favorite shitcoiner?
You know what I really appreciate about Raoul Paul is how he just has so much conviction. And it's like, a lot of people change their mind. A lot of people change their narrative. He's one guy who has just said he's had a very clear investing thesis that he's been, gracious enough to share with the world. And it hasn't changed from day one. He's just been very consistent. And that's what I really appreciate. So I'm very thankful that people like Breedlove are having him on his podcast so that we can really hear that valid and important perspective from somebody like Raoul Paul.
Rug Pal. Yeah.
I mean, the reason he's trading so much, he's got to afford all those bracelets. Like, you've seen how many bracelets he has. Like, that's what the guy's all about. He's trying to make that money. He's trying to buy those bracelets. There's no shame in that game.
Each bead on his bracelet represents $1 million that he's made.
And didn't he say he was like 95% DeFi and ETH and all that horse shit?
Yeah.
That's awesome. It made me so happy. I mean, I wish it was.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe anything that fucking retard says. But.
Well, he doesn't actually have to report anything.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he's 100% bullshit. I hope he doesn't have any Bitcoin, but we probably can't be that lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, Zorn says none of your questions are ever getting on any podcast.
Well, not with that attitude.
They'll get on this podcast.
Yeah, they'll get on this podcast.
Yeah.
We don't censor.
Send your questions that weren't answered by whichever podcast person over
We
here.
had a perfect example. A few weeks ago, we had a bunch of people join who wanted to talk about Tyler Perry movies. We talked about Tyler Perry movies. We do not censor on Toxic Airwaves. We don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So we talked about they joined in the comments. They wanted to talk about Tyler Perry, so we talked about Tyler Perry for a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. We might censor. I think I kicked that Solana guy off one time.
Yeah.
We'll censor up to a point, but yeah, we're not afraid to chat. But yeah, let's see. We're about an hour in. Should we start delving into conspiracy theories?
Yeah, well, so one of our sponsors is actually related to this. So we are, this week, we had a brand new sponsor come online, which is pigeons. So we're being sponsored by the government surveillance drones that you see sitting on power lines. There's, we're going to, in the show notes, we're going to have some links to some new models that Raytheon has coming out. Very, very nice. Very nice set of capabilities that they're starting to offer. It's not your standard run-of-the-mill video and audio surveillance. Like they're picking up. They've got infrared sensors now, the newest model. There's a lot of good features coming out. So make sure to check the show notes and use promo code TOXIC to get a discount on your Raytheon Pigeon order for government surveillance drones. And that'll help the show out a little bit. We appreciate the sats, but using those promo codes is how we pay the bills. So shout out to Raytheon and their government surveillance drones for sponsoring the podcast.
Yeah, birds aren't real.
That's right. No, not real.
Birds aren't real at all. Yeah. Well, on the serious note of conspiracies, so I just finished reading Chaos by Tom O'Neill. Really interesting book about Manson, and delves into all the CIA fuckery in the 60s and 70s with acid and mind control experiments. And I'm pretty convinced after reading that book that Manson had some involvement with the CIA.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Same CIA psychiatrist as Jack Ruby. There's a ton of others.
Well, the story with Jack Ruby, Tom O'Neill goes, pretty in depth into that. That the CIA psychiatrist guy, who I think was a professor at UCLA and somewhere in the Midwest too, he showed up to Jack Ruby. He wasn't his psychiatrist, but he was, right after Jack Ruby killed Oswald, he showed up to try and,
I believe they were involved before that, though, right? Because he was the one that was basically responsible for Jack Ruby's mental breakdown, but I believe they had a relationship prior to that.
I don't know.
I'm only like 30 pages into this book, but another fantastic person to read on this topic is Annie Jacobson. She's got a book called Phenomena that's about like psychic stuff, like MK Ultra, that kind of stuff. She did a book on Operation Paperclip that's fantastic. She did a book called Surprise Kill Vanish that's like the history of the CIA that gets into everything. Like, yeah, she's very good.
Yeah, I read Surprise Kill Vanish. I can't read any more conspiracy books. Actually, I can. Since I just
for a while I wasn't sleeping great, and then I realized I was listening to like the most I was just getting barbecued and listening to the most insane conspiracy podcasts like night after night, and I was like, you know what, that might be what's affecting my sleep.
Yeah,
so I cooled it on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna like summarize the story a little bit. So Manson had initially been in prison. He got out of prison. He was on parole. He went missing in San Francisco, so he was supposed to be in parole in LA, and for some reason his parole got approved for him to move to San Francisco, which is not normal, and his parole officer seemed pretty compromised and either under Manson's spell or colluding with some operatives, and they were running experiments, using acid, trying to mind control people in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. That's in San Francisco, right? Yeah. And pretty interesting, but that's where things, there was just so much insane stuff that was not, part of, the narrative, obviously. And just everything was just super suspect. But, how do you get a guy that is a high school dropout to be able to go, and use these drugs methodically to mind control people, to go murder people without remorse, just normal people?
Yeah.
without supposedly any training.
And that clinic that Manson went to was in continuous operation from like the 60s at least until the day this book was published.
Yeah.
Just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Just coincidence.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if any of that stuff's still going on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, they just moved it down the street a little.
Yeah.
But
probably what they're doing now is there's just some private corporation that's an extension of the CIA that's doing that stuff. So shout out to Raytheon and all those guys that have no accountability whatsoever.
Yeah.
Raytheon's trying to put nanoparticles in our food to track things. Ugh. That's one project that they're working on that is 100% confirmed, and you can go look into that. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is an actual event happening right now. So, yeah. On that topic, though, maybe it'd be smart for some of us to go join Weinicus down in South Central America. Food's a lot better.
Yeah. Mexico's at the top of my list. That's what I like. I'm hoping to go explore there some more over the next year or so.
Yeah.
I was trying to get down there for New Year's, but it's not going to happen.
You got any thoughts on the food in Mexico compared to the food elsewhere, Weinicus?
I mean, I love the food here, and it could get a little repetitive, but I don't know. I'm obsessed with it. So, and there's a variety, like depending on where you are, you can always have non-Mexican food, but tacos, it's a pretty tough thing to beat.
Yeah, I'm more talking about like the quality of the ingredients in the food. Because that's...
I mean, everywhere I tend to travel outside of the U.S. just has better quality overall because most of this stuff is like bought direct in like fresh markets outside versus like supermarkets. So like, I don't know. It seems like I eat the same amount outside of the U.S. than while I'm in it, and I seem to always lose weight and like fat when I'm not in the States. So I think that has a lot to say.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That was my experience in South America. It blew my mind how big of a difference there is. But yeah, Zorn says when one Bitcoin buys one UFO, we have made it.
That actually reminds me, one thing I was going to touch on this episode is, so I'm coming out with an $850 course for, it's going to be all about how to time the real estate market, converting Bitcoin into real estate, when to buy property. And the primary heuristic that that course is going to be based on is the question, is the U.S. government, federal government, declassifying and auctioning off underground military bases? If the answer to that is no, then you need to hodl just a little bit longer and wait for that to happen because it's gonna be coming soon. But anyway, that's just a little teaser for my course. That'll be in the show notes too. $850, but we'll get a promo code out for it, so it'll be only $849.
That's a sick deal.
Yeah, it's a very good deal.
Very well priced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than another Bitcoin course. So
I'll take 5.
Nice.
I mean, that's been my meme that I want to see come into existence is that we're not going to price Bitcoin in dollars. We're going to price it in F-15s.
Yeah.
UFOs are a little bit more ambitious because those are really expensive, I would imagine.
Zorn wants to buy a DUM.
Yep.
Which is we were just talking about this for the show, deep underground military base. Yeah.
I do too.
So once those are being declassified and auctioned off for sats, because that's how, another good metric is has an aircraft carrier been sold for sats? But I think that's a little earlier in the process. These classified bases, I think, will be, that's like a 2028, 2029 type time frame towards the end of the the Great Reset kind of stuff when they realize how fucked they are. That's when I think they'll start auctioning off these bases.
Yeah. So
on a more serious matter regarding real estate, like I do think there will be a period in time where Bitcoiners are going to have to like make that leap, especially with all the regen agriculture like talk happening. If people are going to be practicing that, it's pretty interesting. I don't know. I'm curious like when that like leap of faith into real estate will be done, or I don't know, like what moves are going to be made regarding land or home ownership or any of that stuff.
Yeah. I think like also on a serious note, I think owner financing is going to be the name of the game there. Like finding properties where somebody realizes how impaired the asset that they own is, which is that real estate, that farm, that, commercial, what house, whatever, and wants out of it. And it's like, I think, cause like, none of us wants to, spend 50 million sats on a house and then watch it go down in value to 1 million sats in like 36 months, which is something that could totally happen. But it's like anyway, all that to say, I think owner financing is going to be our friend, because it's like all this stuff related to the credit score, credit system, traditional, like all that stuff's going to just get absolutely fucked, I think. But there's already existing mechanisms like owner financing to handle things like that, where we can pay for it over a period of time. And I don't know. My main thing is like I'm totally in support of people buying property, buying real estate, buying whatever they want to buy, as long as they go into it and it's a conscious decision of this is going to improve my life in a material way, and that's why I'm buying it. But it's not an investment; it's a consumption good. This is just like me buying a sandwich. This is not something I'm ever going to make money off of. Certainly not in Bitcoin terms. And as long as the person is fine with that, I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Shout out to Bitcoin Tina. He likes to harp on that meme.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's like everything. I mean, like, Odell has that meme, like, even the Chrysler building's a shit coin compared to Bitcoin. Like everything's going down in Bitcoin terms. But like I was talking to somebody a while ago, and he was like, well, I wanted a nice house for my family, and so I spent some sats on it. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, that's awesome. That's perfect. Like, that's great. That's a wonderful thing to do. That's a wonderful thing to spend sats on. But it's like these people that think they're going to, buy some business, a farm, regenerative agriculture, like any of that, and then it's going to cash flow in Bitcoin, and then like, no, you need to do this as a passion project that's going to cost money, but it'll be worth it, but not as there's nothing, I don't think, mining is the only thing I think that has a good shot at generating returns in Bitcoin, like over what Bitcoin itself will do.
Yeah. Shout out to the price drop. It's been nice. I think that's going to impact hash rate a little bit.
Yeah. And even mining has a ton of execution risk, has a ton of risk associated with it. Anybody that thinks they know what difficulty is going to be in 6 months is off their rocker.
Dude, I'm so happy with these prices.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice.
I love the sideways chop too.
But yeah, I don't really think there's a ton of risk of doing something like just buying an S9. Like, when we're talking about like mining risk, we're talking about, kind of extending yourself, or using leverage to acquire machines. And I think that's where the risk comes in. But if you DCA into mining rigs over time, I think there's less risk. And if you're just starting out small with like one S9, there's really no risk. It's little bit less than 1 million sats right now. And it's, pretty much plug and play. There's not a lot of infrastructure needed. So I think... But yeah, I totally agree. There's been so many people that have gotten ambitious with mining that have gotten completely wiped out. I know like 3 people in Arizona.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so like, yeah, if you're building like multiple megawatt facilities, there's a ton of execution risk. But I think from a small scale standpoint, it makes sense, especially if you don't have a no KYC stack yet.
Yeah.
This is a meme that Laser's been on that I've appreciated recently, is like accumulating no KYC Bitcoin. I think mining is a great way to do that, and will continue to be a great way to do that as they make the fiat on ramps, on and off ramps more difficult. But
yeah, BISC, Azteco, a couple other options, buying directly from miner. Like I know a miner that spends just a completely insane amount of money on electricity. So that this individual's selling, almost every month, and yeah, that's somebody that the person can buy from. That's another no KYC option. But I definitely agree. I think mining, like, yeah, mining I think is a very good opportunity as long as the person goes into it like really being extremely conservative with their calculations, and then like really thinking through what all the different risks are, the execution risk, all those kinds of different things. I think if a person does that, it can work out. Yeah, and have a good shot at working out well with a very, very small percent of a person's stack. Like I know people that are, high, well into the double digits on their percent allocation to mining stuff. And I'm like, I desperately hope it works out well for you, but I would not be able to sleep at night if I did that.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to say like where miner prices are going to go going forward in the future. Because it seems like they're inflated right now. And part of the reason of why is because I think, Bitmain and MicroBT are a cartel. Mm-hmm. Any other miner, for the most part, is bullshit. And when I say MicroBT, I mean what's miner. And, I think they control the issuance of ASICs into the market to try and, keep the price kind of stable. So I think that's there. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of other players trying to get in. It's going to be really difficult for them too. It's going to take a long time for them. And then we're watching a bunch of supply chain issues. Mm-hmm. So like the miner prices seem a little bit inflated in sats right now. So it'll be curious to see if they'll come down. I think I mentioned earlier to wait to buy because maybe in the next couple months, they'll go down, but it's just like unbelievable to see how many S19s are being bought right now. Yeah. It's insane.
Well, and it's like if you're doing it properly, your only unit of account is sats. And so you're worried about your ROI in sats. And so, I mean, like one big thing, and this is not, this is something everybody thinks about, but it's just like, price rips up even from here to back to 60s. That's significantly fewer sats for, and miner's going to go up a little bit in price, but like let's say we rip to 60 real quick, might be a good time to consider buying a miner because now all of a sudden it takes a lot fewer sats than it did before. And that's, sats out, or sats in, sats out is the only metric that matters on mining, in my opinion. Profitable sats out. A lot of people, they're like, oh, my revenue is whatever. I don't give a shit what your revenue is. What's your profit? That's what matters.
Yeah. So do you know about Strike and Human Rights Foundations?
I saw just a little bit about that. I didn't see what exactly, if it was related to lightning or whatever. I didn't see very much about that.
Yeah. Jimmy Dore was the first person that turned me on to this, and then you mentioned it too, that Human Rights Foundation has a bunch of spooks involved with them.
Gary Kasparov is the chairman. That guy's a fucking spook.
Yeah.
So do with that what you will. I think Gladstein's got to be a good guy. Mm-hmm. Everything I've seen out of him looks great, and
except for his takes on democracy.
Yeah. But it's like I know people. I don't know him, but I know people personally who know him. Who, that's all. That's wonderful. But yeah, HRF is just something to be wary of. Like, look into Gary Kasparov. He's not a good guy.
Yeah. How you doing tonight, Connectors?
Hey, what's happening?
We heard you were having some trouble with some BSV people that were saying mean things about you guys and hurting your feelings.
They were. It kind of happens like almost every single time we do an episode about them. They freak out.
Were they just like drooling all over their keyboards, or what did insults from BSV people look like?
You know what? Nico actually pulled some of the one of the tweets up. The typical argument. Okay, so this one was interesting. BSV is actually now more useful than Bitcoin and Ethereum combined. I mean, there's zero context or use cases provided how this is true, right? Like there's nothing to point at, but that's the statement.
There you go.
Well, I can expound on that. Their argument is that you can have NFTs on the base layer, and apparently, in their understanding of the world of economics and monetary policy, having pictures on your money protocol is what makes it superior.
And you can put videos on the blockchain.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah. Everyone who runs a node should have to keep a copy of your stupid fucking video.
Nobody runs a node.
Yeah.
There's like one node.
Don't forget, every movie you decided to keep should be money. Okay?
Yeah.
It should be just like money. It should be secured like money. I'm telling you, these people are insane. They come up with this stuff, and you know what's really sad is that there's a lot of people that buy the hopium because they look at the Bitcoin price, they're looking at fiat dollars, they're not looking at the bigger picture of what Bitcoin is, and then they look at, shitty BSV, and they're like, I can get that for so much less. It's almost like Bitcoin. And then, of course, they've got, their whole clown show of, circus freaks over there pretending, the Bitcoin historian and Craig Wright and Calvin, right? And these guys, like, they're just helping these poor noobs get fleeced because they want to believe this crap, right? You want to believe that, oh, Bitcoin is this unattainable thing. It doesn't matter because there's this real thing that's a hidden secret and only I know the truth.
Yeah. Well, they probably, I don't know. Like I have this take on Ethereum where I'm very appreciative of Ethereum because it's kind of like flypaper, you know, where it just traps a bunch of like the most obnoxious people and keeps them away from us.
Yeah. It's like look at who left Bitcoin during the block size wars. Were any of them important?
Yeah.
Like, were any of them like these brilliant technologists at the head of their field? No. And that's something, I've made this point here, but it's like, that's something that I think Jimmy Song does a really, really good job making the point of, is that like, these are not like he was in a podcast somewhere and this guy goes, well, I mean, obviously Vitalik's smart, blah, 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 blah. And Jimmy Song cuts him off and goes, no, that's not obvious at all. These are not competent, like wildly intelligent people. They're not terribly bright. Like, look at what it actually takes. Like, if you can fill out a Google form, you can make an ERC20 token. Like, this is not a big, I don't know. Like, it's not a big impressive thing. And it's, I don't know. There's a big debate. It's like, are there more stupid people now than there was before? Or are there the same number of stupid people, but just now we can hear from them? And I tend to lean towards option 2. I think there's always been a bunch, like just an unbelievable amount of stupid people. And it's just now we have the technology infrastructure to actually hear from them. And some of them are into BSV. Yeah. And yeah, BSV is just like Ethereum in the sense that it's like flypaper, where, these people would be at flat earth conventions if they weren't shilling BSV and Canicarus's comments on YouTube. Yeah. How you doing, Gazala? Yeah, we were just talking about the miner. Tucson's been running it here.
Oh, how's it doing? Is it hashing away?
It's hitting almost 16 terahash, so I'm pretty happy. Yeah, just they're rated for 13.5, so that's brains doing the work. And it's a space heater, so I have like a 50-foot hose on it that I drag to whichever room I'm sitting in my house and have it blow hot air on me. It's true. It's amazing.
That's awesome. I don't know why I'm so proud of that, but it made me happy to see that video.
Yeah. Yeah, it's somebody asked me to like post the specs of what I did, and I didn't because I literally just cut a hole and put a hose on it. Yeah. In an old cooler. There's not a lot to it, but yeah. Kiwi.hodl, I think he's got a pretty cool setup. He's putting, I forget which miner he's using, but I think it's like What's Miners, maybe 20 series. I don't know. But anyway, he's putting them in a filing cabinet. And he's got like the hose all built out, and it's, I believe his is Kiwi.hodl. One thing that I've been thinking about and talking with the lady about is building a greenhouse and running the hose from my S19 in to keep it warm, because it would be toasty. We would have to like vent it because it would get too hot. I have a relative who lives in a very cold place, and that was one that I knew this person likes to garden a lot. And I told him, I was like, honestly, like you could
because they were talking about mining in their basement. And I was like, honestly, you could run a hose from the basement to that greenhouse, and I haven't run any numbers or anything, but I would imagine you could keep that warm all winter. And
It gets so hot.
Have an orange tree in the middle of January or something like that.
It's unbelievable how hot they get if you don't vent them.
Yeah.
Like, it was like 100+ degrees in the room.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable to be in there. I was felt lightheaded.
Neil used to tweet out, like it'd be, I remember one time he made a video. It was like 7 degrees outside, and then he made a video that he put on Twitter of I'm presuming they were S9s. I think it was 2 or 3 or maybe 4 running in the crawl space, and he had to have his front and back door to his house open because it was so hot in the house. And they might not have been S9s. They might have been something else, but just a few miners running in his crawl space, and all that just kind of rising up throughout the house was plenty to keep it just roasting in there.
Yeah, but S9s are incredibly manageable. That's what I would suggest for you, Winekiss, is start out with an S9. But the hard part is getting your hands on one right now. They're very illiquid.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of applications.
Unless you have an awesome friend like Gosla.
Yeah, unless you're in the right place at the right time in Costa Mesa.
That was pretty random. I'm so glad that worked out.
Yeah, me too. I'm so stoked. I work for Kaboom Racks, and I've been trying to get my hands on an S9, and I can't. And I can't tell you how happy that made me.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Did this not turn into a gift?
What's that?
Like it was going... Wasn't this going to be a Christmas gift?
Yeah, kind of. It's an educational tool. That's the way
Got
I'm
it.
treating it. I'm trying to get the lady a little bit more into Bitcoin. Not too much, but a little bit more. And I feel like if I set up a miner and pay for the energy costs, and she just sees Bitcoin show up in her wallet every week, she would appreciate mining more, and it might let me get more miners.
Nice. Sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scheme. She knows it's a scheme. But yeah, okay, so one thing that I've been working on, I think this is like a huge place of growth for mining and small scale mining, is there's a lot of, people, like I was talking to a guy that owns a machine shop in Tucson, and this guy is getting so screwed on metal prices right now. He has to, his quotes, like if he quotes a customer, they have to take the quote within like 3 days, or they'll have to adjust the quote because the metal prices fluctuate so much.
Oof.
And it's just insane. It's just absolutely insane. But there's all these people out there, that operate warehouses, that operate, machine shops, that could very easily plug in a miner and start subsidizing costs, and, do some workarounds to maybe not necessarily report it and just pay for the energy with business expenses. And I think that's a huge, huge market to be tapped that I'm going to be really working on this next year. And another one is there's a bunch of people in Tucson. It's unbelievable how hard they push solar power.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not very economical. It doesn't make a ton of sense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they push it so hard down people's throats in Arizona. And there's so many people that have solar, because this is the common trap where people don't weigh the cost of things in the long term, and they just think about the monthly payment. They're like, oh, I'll have a lower monthly payment on my energy bill. But yeah, mining, I think, is a great option for them to subsidize their stupid solar power and ROI on it faster.
Yeah.
So
but I think it's like it's not too much of a benefit. Like I knew somebody who they thought they were going to put those Tesla power walls in their house so that they could run solar and, mine 24. They're like, oh, I'm going to mine. My power's going to be so cheap. And then I showed them that they would need, I think it was like 3 power walls to run one S19 overnight. And I was like, you're going to spend, I think they're like $10,000 a pop. You're going to spend $30,000 on batteries just to run this thing. Do you understand that? Like, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense, does it? Like, no, it doesn't fucking make sense. Like, no, it's like, yeah, mining is, hydro, nuclear, fossil fuels, or GTFO, basically.
Zorn says he wants to go fist fight Tesla as well. I wonder why. Explain to us why in the chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. The idea of the mining is not for the solar to subsidize the Bitcoin mining. The idea is the mining to subsidize the solar costs.
Yeah, so that you use it to power a little bit of it to power a miner instead of selling it back to the grid or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the people that made because the power companies screw you on the energy. They don't pay you market price for it.
Yeah.
So that's my thought. And there's a lot of people out there in Tucson that have done that. So I think that's going to be one of my spiels.
Yeah.
But yeah. But this is like, I think the coolest part about the mining is this is like how I see the circular economies.
Yeah.
Going, because I think I'm feeling stronger and stronger about the need to reject exchanges because of what I see coming with, crazy tax regulations and surveillance and, awful stuff coming down the pike. So,
yeah. I think it also goes back to, too, that we were talking about kind of towards the beginning of how much of this is definitely going to get a lot worse on paper, but how much that actually translates to people's daily lives. Because, like, my best guess is it starts to get really, really bad on paper, like lots of stupid rules, regulations, all that kind of stuff. But the average daily life of Bitcoiners, I think, is going to get a lot better because it's like, I think we've already seen the absolute peak of state power, and it's a downward trajectory towards zero from there, I think. And that, to me, that seems pretty clear. And so it's like, there's going to be, and then but like being out of, like off of exchanges that, like, or at least not needing them, use them, whatever, who cares? I personally don't care. But it's like, at least being able to operate outside of that world, I think helps a lot. Like knowing how, like, let's say everything KYC related gets shut down tomorrow. Can you still source Bitcoin? Like, that's a really important question. Doesn't mean you have to only buy no KYC and, whatever. Like, it's your personal choice how much you want to do, if at all. But like, just to be able to, I think is pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, my approach is just like, I want to, like, if I'm onboarding some new person, I want to explain to them the power of no KYC right off the bat, instead of just plugging them into an exchange and being like, okay, now you buy the Bitcoin. And it's like,
I always offer to sell people their first sats.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. That's awesome. And because I mine, it makes a lot more sense if I'm paying for energy that way. But yeah, it's, I won't necessarily, I say like you can use the exchange, but I see like presenting the no KYC option as just as important, and explaining the basics of Bitcoin privacy just as important as getting them to self-custody right off the bat. It's not, not everybody's going to do it, and I realize that it's better for them to hold KYC Bitcoin in self-custody than to not have anything. But I want to present it as an option. So, and the people I roll with tend to appreciate that a little bit more too.
Yeah.
I don't hang out with commies for the most part. But yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so Zorn explained his comment. He wants to fight Tesla because all of they function off of government subsidies and never turn a profit. Yeah. So this like fight between Elon and Senator Karen has been pretty entertaining.
Yeah. And that again is like more of kind of what we were talking about earlier too, is it's like how important it is to be just completely disrespectful towards these people and mock them and laugh at them. And that's not just fun, but strategically extremely important, I think. Way more important than trying to engage, like these people that try to bring facts into it or data. Or it's like, well, actually the economic impact, it's like, go fuck yourself. Like, that doesn't matter at all. Yeah. This is a power game. Like, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Every conversation about politics should start with, my rights are not up for discussion.
Yeah.
It's not a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
And so, I don't really give a shit what you have to say on that, but yeah, I agree.
As I got a lot of practice of it at it in Portland. You know, I'd talk to people, and somebody would say like, "Well, you know, I think homeschooling should be illegal," and I'm like, "Why would I care what you think?" They're like, "Well, it does." I'm like, this conversation is over. Like, you don't have a valid perspective. I'm not interested. And they're like, "Well, you know, I was reading this academic study." It's like, no, nobody cares. Go away. And it's like, just to like, I don't know. Sometimes I'd say things a lot meaner, like, you know, you're probably going to die alone and miserable. But that's only if they push it. Yeah. But it's just like, I think these people need to be, just need to be disregarded and cast aside. Like, we don't have to have ill feelings towards them or anything like that. But we just absolutely cannot spend even a second pretending like they have a valid perspective. Yeah. I don't think.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's kind of like when Fauci comes out and is like, don't have Christmas with unvaccinated people.
Yeah. It's like, okay, how about instead I share a joint with 40 people at BitBlock Boom? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I mean, just do whatever. Speaking of which, Gazala, how's your mom?
She's better. She's actually at the doctor now. So, yeah, she had a really bad reaction to her booster shot. She had a bad reaction to her second shot, too. But, you know, I can't stop their decisions. And I'm pretty sure she'll never get it again. She passed out. She was so lightheaded. She passed out in the middle of the night. Nobody saw her to see what happened. She fractured her elbow. She's still, like, really off balance. But it was really scary. Like, I was with her. I had to call 911 when she was like hallucinating when she couldn't get up. So she's a lot better now, but you know, you just never know what's going to happen. And she was like the biggest advocate. She really wanted everybody to get it. And she's finally like, she realizes that she could have died from, you know, from this vaccine. And that's much worse than getting COVID, even, you know, at a moderate case of it. So I guess that's the benefit, is like, she's not going to mess with her body now with those shots, but it's been really scary.
Yeah. I'm glad she's doing better. I'm glad that you were there.
Absolutely.
It's just so awful. Like, if something like that were to happen, nobody was going to be there. I
actually wasn't. I mean, I don't live with them. I just live close to them. She fell like in her closet. So that's like, nobody saw. My dad heard it, but the crazy thing is I have like a lot of cousins that are doctors, and they're all like, they keep telling her that it's just something else. It's just, you know, either it's because, so she's vegetarian, but they're like, your diet is really bad, or like, just all these other excuses. Like, she needs to get all these other things checked out, but definitely don't skip the next booster. Like, that's the number one thing for them. I'm like, these people are just nuts.
Yeah. And that's like there's just that, like, I've known, I don't know what the right like term, like the people that are like doctors, like professionals, well off, like that, like yuppies is the derogatory term, but I don't know what like the right term is. But there's a really big, I don't know, like there's a really big like conformist mindset, I think, in that world, and it's like, yeah, it's been very, very strange to watch, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's just that it kind of points to academia. Like, I have a good buddy, like my best friend, just graduated PA school, and it's unbelievable the conversations that I've had with him, not just about the vaccine, but about, you know, social justice, you know, all sorts of other stuff, where he's just like filled to the core with like collectivist propaganda. And he was totally different beforehand. And fortunately, like, he has some solid values around like individual liberty, privacy, you know, the importance of owning firearms. So he's not hopelessly lost. But yeah, I mean, the more educated you are, the more you tend to be exposed to this propaganda and groupthink. And you have to think, like, they surround you with peers that are just being bombarded with bullshit over and over again. And it's like the same thing. Like, this is why I dropped out of school for economics, because I couldn't believe the stuff that they were teaching me. Well, they weren't teaching me shit. They were, throwing propaganda at me. And, it's like, this is why we have, the entirety of academia, economists just being horrible statists that are insane. So, yeah, that's why we're in the mess where we're in. I mean, it's just a bunch of groupthink and bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And it's very rare for people in any group to, be, the kind of people that are listening to this show, like sovereign, critical thinking. Like, there's a lot of people here, I'm sure we disagree on all kinds of different things. Like, there's, but it's like at the core, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we understand Bitcoin, we understand why it's important, and we understand to some degree where this is headed. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I think it's just super important, but it's just like, I've just known, people I went to school with, people like that, make very good money, very successful, all that kind of stuff. It's wonderful. I'm very happy for them. But it's like, if you're, like we were talking about earlier, if you're the blonde hair ponytailed guy from Good Will Hunting in that bar scene, it's like, what the fuck's the point? Like, if you're, the Dan Held of of the real world, like, just like these people just don't, like I said, like, it's, so what I was saying earlier is, it's just basically that, like, he's the Dan Held's, like, in my opinion, the perfect embodiment of that blonde-haired ponytail guy from the bar scene in Good Will Hunting. And it's just like, materially very successful. I'm absolutely certain he has more money than me, and that's wonderful. That's great. But it's like, this is not somebody with, an original, well-thought-out perspective on the world. Like, this is not somebody who is capable and willing to critically evaluate the world around them and, navigate that. And it just kind of is what it is. And it's true for a lot of these people that, on the surface are very successful, certainly within the fiat system are very successful. But it's like, like, ask them questions that require, an original perspective, and it usually doesn't go too well.
Yeah. And this is this is one of the things that's, a bummer and is kind of hopeful, is like, your mom's experience, it took her having, being hurt to realize that, there's an issue with this. And this is the case for everyone, until, a lot of us get burned by the state or by, authority figures. We tend to, blindly trust. And this is why this is such a momentous time in human history, where we, there's a lot of shifting, is because the state is acting like things are just really bad right now. Mm-hmm. And people are really hurting, and, are starting to, wake up, and we have the most powerful off ramp ever created.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's what makes the, on our side, like the advocacy side, so important. Is it's like, like how much, pain and turmoil and loss have each of us averted because we adopted Bitcoin, before today. Everybody here found it at least before today. And so it's like, we have, our lives are materially better because we understood this earlier than other people did. And so it's like, the more that we can do to help people understand that, Bitcoin's one, there's all, the vaccine, COVID related stuff, those kinds of things. Yeah. Tucson put Henry Kissinger on the YouTube stream. That's, probably, he's still alive, right?
I think
unfortunately.
So. Yeah.
Probably one of the most evil people alive today. Like, but yeah, we just like, we, the more that we can help people understand these things, it's like the more they can improve their lives earlier, hopefully.
Yeah. Totally agree. You jumped up here, RW. You got anything for us?
RW.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Going pretty good. This is Skeef. We're both on.
I could tell with that that soft, sultry voice.
Oh.
I was surprised I hadn't heard a quick Texas LARPs on Liberty.
We covered that already.
We did talk about it earlier.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, this is all really interesting stuff. And Keith, you've been like such a hardcore proponent of, they've got the meme that you don't feed the trolls. And I think that you've been somebody who's really been articulating this idea of you don't entertain the NPC.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same idea. You don't give them any ammo to kind of play with. And it gets me thinking about, obviously we've got our little Bitcoin community where everybody is either extremely orange pilled or very orange pilled and all kind of studying the same curriculum, so to speak. And I like to look in different ecosystems and kind of think, what are the leftists going to say about the problems of the world right now, and where are they going with this crazy experience that we're having? Because our intuition is that you have to default to personal liberty, and that is a non-negotiable. The non-negotiable that there are certain rights that you don't tamper with. And then on the other side of the aisle, you've got these sort of collectivist individuals who really, it feels to me almost like they're just a hair's breadth away from understanding the value of something like a Bitcoin. And I think about, how important education is going to be in this ecosystem, and then really has been over the last couple of years. But more so as obviously the FUD ramps up and the power of the network ramps up. But what's still surprising to me, and I think I've kind of distilled down the error that they're making, and I don't want to trivialize it, but I really think it's a psychological one. I think at the end of the day, everybody who's here, everybody who's orange-pilled, at some fundamental level, believe that we ourselves are responsible for dealing with the conditions of our lives. That if there's something that's screwed up, we have to fix it. We have to custody our keys. We have to take care of our families. We have to take care of our surrounding environments, our neighbors. We're more localist or anarchist in our way of sort of looking at the world. And it seems to me that there's this like psychological draw that is really sucking in a lot of these lefties right now, that they want all of their solutions through collectivism. And it seems to me that at some point this is going to die. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if these NPCs, what is going to kind of wake them up to this idea that they have to take responsibility over themselves? Or is it the case that some of these people just never want to or never will take responsibility over their lives? That's kind of been bouncing around my mind the last couple of days. I'm super curious what your thoughts are on these kinds of things, because the psychology, and people getting injured with vaccines and then going up for another dose, there's something there about sort of trusting the bigger thing that all of us don't see, which is why it seems so crazy to us.
Yeah.
I used to work in addiction rehabilitation. And so you'd have these people come in that had completely destroyed their lives and had experienced tremendous amounts of pain, just dealing with levels of depravity, like human depravity, that's just unbelievable, with, the way that they screw over their family, potentially spending in time in prison, all sorts of, awful stuff, having their kids, get taken away from them by courts, multiple divorces, whatever the case is. And very few of the people got better. And, I think it's kind of the same case, in this scenario, honestly, is there's a lot of people that aren't going to wake up. And it's like, you look at what we've already gone through in the last 2 years, let alone the last 20 years of just insanity from the state and from monetary policy, of having, the majority of society's assets completely pillaged and, very blatantly given to a minority of people. And, a lot of people aren't waking up. And I think a lot of people won't wake up. And this is kind of like, the argument that Alex Svetsky put forward in his most recent Bitcoin Magazine article about, selective adoption, is that, I don't think we win this by collectively trying to go out and reach these people. We go to people that are receptive, and everybody else in time moves with us, because we're, ultimately going to be powerful, because we have, the most powerful tools in markets on our side, and hard money on our side, and unconfiscatable unconfiscatable, uncensorable money on our side. And so it's just an unfortunate reality, to watch a lot of people just like stuck in it. Like I, have a family member that I was at a wedding with, who I care very deeply at, that had, Black Lives Matter bracelet. And what that signified to me was not that, he was necessarily a Marxist or, a part of a, bad tribe or something like that, but that he just wasn't, aware or awake, what's happening around us. And, so I stack for that person.
Yeah.
And they're stacking too, and I hope he's going to be okay, but, it's just hard.
And I think what you're bringing up, RW, is a super important discussion. Like, it's a very, like, I would certainly, of the two options you presented, I would lean towards the second option, which is that most people will never be sovereign. Most people will never take control of their life. And, I say that because it's like the mass adoption thing has never made sense to me. Like, I remember, a while ago, before the whole remnant thing came out, people would talk about mass adoption and be like, what are you talking about? Like, 75% of the population will never control a UTXO. They just never will. It's not going to happen. And it's probably a lot higher. It's probably 97, 98%, but it's for sure at least 75% will never under any circumstance control a UTXO. And it's just like, to me, that's just like a fact of nature. And, like what you're referencing, the reason I have that as my pinned tweet is because it's like, for me, that's a really foundational aspect of how I interact with the world. Is I don't have negative feelings towards these people. I'm almost completely indifferent towards them. Like, I wish them well. I want nothing but prosperity for them, their family, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I want good things to happen to these people. I want them to have good lives. I want their kids to be happy, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I really do think like that framework in there is the way to treat them, is treat them like dogs. Like, I'm going to be nice to them. If I see a hungry one, I'll feed it. I'm never going to be mean to them. I've never kicked a dog. I never will, unless it was attacking me or something like that. But it's just like, we're not mean to them. We're nice. Like, we're kind to them. We provide for them when we can. But I'm not going to ask a dog, what firearms I should own. I'm not going to ask a dog if Bitcoin should be legal. Like, I'm not going to ask somebody's poodle, what exactly a money transmitter is or something like that. I just think we absolutely cannot pretend like these people have valid perspectives. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the like another analogy we've talked about on here is, they're not even like hindering our goals or hindering our progress. Like, I think another good framework to think about them is just like trees. And it's just this, this isn't Michael Malice. I've picked up this idea from him. It's just like this idea of like, are you going to say, we can't have hyper Bitcoinization because of something the trees are doing? Like, are you going to say, we can't have sovereign Bitcoiners doing XYZ because there's this forest over here and the trees are, it's like I really think these people are as relevant to what's going on as trees. And historically, a very small minority of the population, call it 3 to 5% max, has completely changed the entire paradigm that society exists within, and everyone else just kind of falls into the new paradigm, or they don't, and it just kind of is what it is. And that, I think, as much as possible, like maintaining that indifference towards people we don't know that fall into this category, I think is super important. And then also, because all of us have people in our lives that fall into that category. And it's like caring for them, wishing them well, those, helping them when we can, those kinds of things, but not asking them if I should have an AR-15 also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's, you think about, I've been thinking quite a bit about how most of these major sort of social changes that occur throughout history, whether it's the poverty rate drastically declining in the last century, whether it's infant mortality absolutely plummeting in the modern world. There were these social effects, but they were really downstream of technological innovation. It doesn't matter what you say about the internal combustion engine. You know, Henry Ford made the car so that everybody in the U.S. could afford one, and they bought it. And it fundamentally changed the way in which these sort of even unconscious masses of people participated in the world. And even if they weren't conscious, right, they could still participate in some improvement in their life because of this technological innovation. Same thing with the cell phone, same thing with the smartphone, same thing with the internet. And Bitcoin is really just another technological tool that on a long enough timeline is like, it's fire. It's the same kind of thing where it will be integrated because it is fundamentally a better technology into the modern world. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say about it. It doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter how mad you get at it. It's going to keep growing. It's going to continue to stay anti-fragile. And at the end of the day, you're going to be participating with it because it's simply a better technology.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And this is one of the exciting things too right now is like, you know, this whole attitude of like, we need to go out there and make sure that AOC understands Bitcoin, or we need to educate our local politicians on Bitcoin. Like we don't want them to know what Bitcoin is.
That was my most popular tweet on the new account. Yeah. I forget the exact contents, but basically AOC can get sats by cleaning toilets at the end of the decade or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to win this, you know, not because we have a collective uprising, but because we use the market wisely. And it's like, you know, your attitude of, you know, Skeef on education is amazing, you know, and super powerful. It's like, I'm not going to, you know, put my kids in schools to be abused. I'm just going to take them out and not have to deal with it at all. Yeah. And I think this is one of the most exciting things. And I know of a project being worked on, you know, to incorporate Bitcoin into education. It's like you look at the internet and the stuff that you can learn on it right now, and then you incorporate Bitcoin in with it, and you can totally obsolete the entire education system, which is, you know, we were talking about is one of the major problems that we have right now with academia and this group think bullshit. And it's super, super exciting.
Yeah. Well, and another idea RW was talking about a little bit earlier is kind of, I don't know if you used the term extreme ownership or not, but that idea of...
Yeah, same idea.
And that I think is super, like that's like, as far as like my day-to-day life changing, that like really, really grokking and implementing that idea has been one of the most, like, it was about 6 years ago. Like my life, like fundamentally changed when I don't know, for me, it was just deciding absolutely everything that happens in my life, good or bad, is my fault, period. It's all my fault, 100% of it. It's my fault, which is that, you know, that's not great for the bad stuff, but that means I have control over it, or that maybe not control, but I have influence. Like these are things that I'm responsible for my life, and everything that happens is my fault. And so for me, the takeaway is, well, I have this whole new level of influence over my life that I wasn't previously aware of. And it's like, I have the capacity and the power to create really, really positive things in my life. And then years later read, you know, the book Extreme Ownership, and was like, okay, yeah, you know, this is a lot of good stuff. Like that's
a good one.
You know, these are some things that I had beaten into me by life, and then, you know, found very similar ideas in that book, things like that. But it's like that's one big I 100% agree that's one big characteristic of Bitcoiners is like that idea of responsibility. You know, there's no customer support line if I lose my keys. You know, it just, you know, I just made a donation to everybody if that happens.
Yeah, solid. Bitcoin Kindergarten live Q&A. Is that Weinicus? Or is that Optimus?
It's probably Optimus. Optimus, you got anything
Weinicus.
for us? Oh, it's Weinicus. Hey, could you get Optimus
I'm just
on?
giving,
we kind of like him better.
I don't know. I like Weinicus.
He already speaks enough.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely like Weinicus better than Optimus for sure.
I don't have I like them both.
I'll be reporting this to Optimus, so.
I like Optimus's music taste better than Weinicus's.
Agree to disagree.
What you guys got in store for us this Wednesday, Wankus?
We have Ephesians coming on talking about pneumatic warfare, I think.
Hell yeah.
Good choice of people.
That'll be good.
You got to ask him about his S9 army.
Yep. Dude, that guy has so many S9s.
Yeah, Optimus has been talking to him, so I'm not really... I haven't been following him too much, so I'm excited to listen in.
He's definitely a good follow.
Yeah.
We had a great chat last week about how wonderful compass mining is. How great of an idea it is to go drop $50,000 on pre-order of 6 S19 XPs.
I'm sure everybody's already seen the video, but if you haven't, I think, what's his name? Gigglesmer or something like that posted it. I think it's GEGLSMR. Yeah. Anyway, well, we'll find it and tweet it out. But it's that Ephesians basically calling, not basically, like literally, like telling Compass that them working with all this ESG stuff is modern day equivalent of working with the Nazi Party. Like IBM sold computers to the Nazis. You're doing the same thing now. It's like, and the guy was like, "Well, that seems like a loaded question."
That was so funny.
Awesome.
That was amazing.
Good work, Ephesians.
Here,
Yeah, 2 sounds good.
I live for those sound bites.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on this app.
Yeah. Well,
you just scroll through a bunch of shit, and then you come across something like that, and it's gold.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how to.
And Ephesians is one, when he gets going, it's like, hey, everybody go on mute. Like let him talk for a few minutes because he's about to kill it.
Yeah.
Like a few weeks ago, he was on here telling us all about Pizzagate and stuff like that. And it was just, I don't know how long he went for, 8 or 10 minutes. And it was all just fantastic. It was awesome.
Oh, wait. I just put last week's Bitcoin Kindergarten in. I didn't mean that.
We don't want people actually watching Bitcoin Kindergarten. We just want the clip.
Where?
Just kidding. Just kidding. Go watch Bitcoin Kindergarten. It's easily the best thing to do on Wednesday nights. Easily.
Yeah, where is it? It's super funny.
But yeah. We'll find that and we'll tweet it out.
ESG is like really insane.
Did I see Marty's owl in there too? You got anything for us? We our sponsor earlier was government surveillance drones from Raytheon, which is pigeons. So I don't know what you think about that, but
are owls surveillance drones too?
The leading minds in the field are thinking that owls are probably alien beings. There's a lot of academic debate about whether that's interdimensional or interplanetary. So those are kind of the two main schools of thought. But I think studies have largely confirmed that owls are actually aliens. Would be my understanding.
No, it's much simpler than that. We're just created by the government to like spy over you, manipulate you, and really that's it. It's that simple.
Interesting. And those long hidden legs that owls have, that's creepy. I didn't know about that until recently.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do leg days. We just do biceps and chest and back. That's it.
Interesting. And how do you feel being on a podcast or space that's sponsored by pigeons, by government surveillance drones?
Pigeons are created by CIA. We're more FBI. In like secret NASA. So we're like different agency part of the U.S.
Okay.
Okay, I found the clip. Let me play it real quick.
Criminals. Are birds ESG friendly?
Probably not.
Can you play it on here?
Yeah, I can play
it.
Oh,
nice. Okay, yeah. So he's
going
to
play
kind
the
of Ephesians.
everywhere, so probably not.
He's going to play Ephesians ripping Compass a new one real quick, which is always fun.
You guys to bring it up. Like I hear you guys talking about like how big of a market the ESG thing is, and I recognize.
Can you guys hear that?
But do you guys have any
no
concern whatsoever about?
I think it's too quiet.
Okay.
We'll put it in the nest. You can watch it if you haven't.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's seen it too.
I put it in the nest. It's
good
really
stuff.
Good. Yeah. Well, we're at about 2 hours. Should we do our sponsors real quick?
Sure.
So, big thank you to Zorn for sending me some sats for my future ex-wife that I'll maybe meet at Dirtbags Bar. Hopefully not. I'm in a pretty good relationship right now. But if you are looking for a future ex-wife, Dirtbags Bar is the place to be. in Tucson, Arizona.
It's easily the best place to meet your future ex-wife. So we've talked about them before. We talk about them each week. We're very thankful for, what they contribute to the show, but it's right off campus. Yep. Right by the U of A. So it's a fantastic place to go listen to a bunch of woke 20-year-olds tell you what's wrong with the world and how to fix it. It's a really, really good place. Go there, tell them Toxic Airwaves sent you. That will mean nothing to them, but go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah. You want to take the Marty Jones fan club?
Oh, yeah, and then we have a new sponsor this week we're really, really excited about. The Marty Jones fan club has decided to sponsor us. Anyone that listened to RHR this week knows that I am the self-proclaimed president of the Marty Jones fan club, and as the president and currently only member, I've decided to allocate some of our marketing funds towards sponsoring Toxic Airwaves so that people can know that, there's a lot of good stuff going on at TFTC. We got Marty Bent, we got Matt Odell, and now we also have Marty Jones. And
Carr. Don't forget Carr.
And Carr, yeah. And if anybody wants to be in the Marty Jones fan club, all it takes is stating that in a TFTC shout-out. So go ahead and submit a TFTC shout-out with... actually, you don't even have to put your name. You can put whatever you want. It's free. It's free country. But yeah, Marty Jones Fan Club, Dirtbags Bar, and Raytheon Pigeons government surveillance drones are our sponsors this week.
I've got one last one. So, Apple reached out to us. They wanted to give a shout out to iOS, which is definitely the most secure and private operating system out there. Make sure to dump graphene for iOS. They realized that they made a big mistake on. That whole idea of surveilling people's phones. They rolled that back. They'll do better now. Just make sure to trust them. They promised that centralized closed source walled garden operating systems are much better than open source privacy centric. So
just make sure iCloud is the only place that all your photos, messages, and videos are backed up, and you'll be good to go.
Yep. Especially your sensitive ones, because there's nothing like having pictures of your future ex-wife
from Dirtbags Bar.
Yeah, from Dirtbags stored on
from the stall in Dirtbags Bar.
Yeah, I've never really understood those types of pictures, but to each their own. And then we have
I only let mine out if I get paid.
Yeah, we we definitely want to make sure that Senator Karen feels better. She was just recently diagnosed with
the Rona,
the Wuhan flu. So best wishes to her. She had some great takes on DeFi this past week, and and we just want her back in action, feeling better. Gosh,
is that all our sponsors?
Do we have any shout outs and any events coming up?
When's the Tucson meetup?
I haven't posted it yet. Okay. It's gonna be sometime in January.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wait till after Christmas to figure that out. But yeah, we got some plans for Tucson.
Keep an eye on the Arizona meetup page. We got a home mining workshop coming up. We got Blake Masters in February, the Senate candidate, who I don't know. I was telling somebody recently, like, if there's two politicians that might not be totally terrible, and I'm gonna stop there so I don't get in trouble. Loomis and then Masters seem reasonably not awful. So
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna involve anyway, but I'm interested to hear what they have to say. So he's gonna be speaking in Phoenix.
It's a great opportunity to draw out a bunch of status and for me to sit in the back and explain why the state is illegitimate. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, Stephen Cole's working on something cool. He's working on creating like a Bitcoin chamber of commerce for Arizona. So that's something that he's super passionate about, and kind of rolling off of what Brian Harrington's doing in California, where, just creating a network to give free marketing to businesses that accept Bitcoin. And I think in us patroning them, especially the businesses that we know that are keeping Bitcoin on their balance sheet, because we don't really give a shit if they're just converting it to fiat. Like, who cares? That I think is going to be cool and powerful. We're working on something in Tucson to be able to do have like a location to do more, technical workshops. So I think that's pretty cool. Trying to think of any other shout outs.
I think that's it. Have a
Beyond Bitcoin Kindergarten.
Yep, Bitcoin Kindergarten Wednesday with Ephesians. It'll be great.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm so tired. What, Canicarus, what's your show called?
Simply Bitcoin.
Simply Bitcoin. Yeah. Always a solid show to watch.
Definitely.
I watched it today. I don't know how I forgot the name. I shout it out every week. But yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else on stage have anything before we close it down? RW, you got any other?
Trust the experts.
That's right. Yep. Hell yeah, there it is.
You've just been blessed.
Got it, yes.
I only listen to Weinicus on anything. He's my guide.
Nice. Yeah, and it's not a complete episode without a bong rip from Hobo Hodler.
Yeah,
so we
just in time.
greatly appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for dropping in, Zorn.